time for the best coverage of the top stories in sports. The Sports Wrap with Jason Page starts now.
Yes, it does on a Wednesday. Thank you, Chad Erickson. Lots to do over the next 60 minutes of this special edition of Sports Wrap. It's special because we have a special guest hanging out with us. Every Wednesday, I just invite some friends to come hang out on the show because it's just me by myself on Wednesdays. So I decided today to get in touch with our friend Kenny Mayne, formerly of ESPN, who's now doing whatever he wants. Not in retirement, because he always says it's not retirement. He is not retired. But he is just kind of floating through the universe and doing whatever the hell he feels like after having to be on SportsCenter at a certain time every day and all that. I can't even believe it's already been a couple of years since you left ESPN, Kenny.
3 years. 3 years and several months. It was May of 21. 22, 23, 24, and here we are late in 24. Yeah.
And I was living in Palm Springs at the time. We only moved here in August. But I was living in Palm Springs at the time, and the first thing I said when I was starting to build my own media company, and I still say this to this day, is I want to work with Kenny Mayne. I don't care what it is. I just want to do something with Kenny Mayne. And I remember calling you. And I'm like, so what do you want to do? It was like a job interview. And I was like, so what do you want to do with the rest of your life? And you basically were saying to me, I don't really know. I'm just going to do this. I'll do whatever I feel like doing, stuff that's fun and, passion projects. And you've got one that I want to talk about to start the show. It's called Wiffleball, the movie. And I want to play just a little clip from the trailer for it. It's on Fubo, which, by the way, you can watch our show on Fubo as well. So I thought it was great synergies there.
There you go.
So here is a taste of Kenny Mayne's Wiffleball. Watch.
A long time ago, we used to play Wiffleball a lot. We pretended to be players from the big leagues. And then, decades later, I got to play Wiffleball with a superstar.
It's not a wiffle ball. That's a setback.
But that doesn't mean we're not making a movie.
I like this hoodie better. It's just more comfortable.
And it doesn't mean we're not trying to find the truth. We got Ken Burns in this damn thing.
So you're missing all of the central ingredients that you want to have for your passion project. So
far.
Where's the passion?
3 more throws. All right.
Here's the passion, Ken. All sorts of passion. For the game,
Fuck the rope.
It spiked it a little bit, so that's probably 67-ish.
bounced it.
Yeah.
And the truth.
Nobody try to get in his way. Bottom of ninth, kid steps to the plate. He's left-handed and stands like a man destined for greatness.
58.
Takes one last glance at whoever's left on the bases. Now he's off to the races. Kid is quick and he's on one. Full count, Griffey hits the next pitch, home run. All the fans dance, scramble and scream. The King's home, grand slam, can't last dance.
A long time ago, we used to play wiffle ball.
I gotta know.
That's all you need to see. If you just watch that over and over, you have the essence of the movie.
We'll just run it on a loop. Tell me the impetus for this.
Well, the tape where you see me throwing wiffle balls way back in 1989. So how long do you want this story to be? I know we have 8-minute segments.
Sure.
Okay. I was working in local TV. I didn't even want to be in sports. I was trying to be all serious and took political science, and I thought I was going to be like a documentarian and do what's, the good stuff. Then I went the easy route because they said, hey, we're out in weekend sports. You need to be the sports guy. You played football. I was like, I guess. So I start moving up the ladder in my little local TV job, and I get Griffey and Harold Reynolds to show up at the Seattle Science Center for a feature story. I guess sort of the poor man's version of what I would later do at ESPN, the NFL Countdown stories, which were slightly more polished than what I did that day in 1989. But I held the raw tape all these years later of me and Griffey throwing wiffle balls. And I've contended for all these years that I beat him on the speed gun by 1 mile per hour. And he brought up the wiffle ball throwing when we ran into each other at a Seattle Sports Awards show. And I was like, if Griffey still remembers that day, 34 years later, there's got to be something there. So I found the tape. Then I had to figure out how to see what's on the tape because that was called Broadcast Beta SP. It used to be fancy. No, it sounds bad, but it's not beta like Betamax. It's not kind of. It's broadcast beta SP. Once was a fancy tape.
Those were big tapes, weren't they?
No, this was a little one. This was
okay.
this was like a cassette looking about like the size of a VHS that you watch a movie with. And I had to figure out who the hell had the machinery to literally see what the hell was on the tape.
Yeah.
And that's part of the documentary, the kind of the making of as we're making it. In fact, that's where Ken Burns jumps in. He's like, so you're missing all of the essential ingredients, So we eventually find a guy in Seattle, Joe Wren, KOMO TV, and we have the big reveal of what's on the tape. On tape, it turns out it looks like we tied at 61 miles per hour. Then I go to the head of Wiffleball in Connecticut.
Don't spoil the whole thing.
It doesn't matter. They can know the truth ahead of time. It's a fun scene, though, because I'm there like, all right, what's on the tape? What's on the tape? And the wrong thing shows up on the screen. Like, oh, my God, I have nothing on the tape. Ultimately, the head of Wiffleball informs me that we weren't even using a wiffle ball. It was one of those knockoff wiffle balls. Remember when you were playing wiffle ball as a kid?
Yeah.
And the equipment was broken or lost in the woods or something. And then they didn't have wiffle balls at the store, but they had those other ones, those fakey ones with all the holes. They're like pickleballs today.
Sure.
So unfortunately, Griffey and I weren't even throwing a real wiffle ball. But we still call the movie Wiffle Ball because of my love for wiffle ball, the history of wiffle ball. And then we end up using a real wiffle ball, and I go to Driveline Baseball in Kent, Washington, where they train the athletes, and I try to beat my old number. So there's a lot of moving parts in this thing.
How hard was it to bring it together, to find the people to help and all of that stuff in the last minute of this segment?
Thanks for that 1 minute warning.
You're very welcome.
7 minutes. We accomplished virtually nothing here. We did play the clip though.
We got plenty of time. It's okay.
It was easy because I was paying for it. So I just commanded myself to go shoot more. So my good friend, Jason Jobs, great guy, golfing coach, and he's a great camera guy, works on Monday Night Football. He was kind of the source to start. He's like, hey, why don't you do something that you think is funny and let's not worry about the results. Let's just do it to do it. We did it. Eventually, I got it on Fubo Sports, and we're hoping people like it, and it leads to getting to do the next one and the next one.
See, that's what we call a tease in the business, because you mentioned the next one, and I want to ask you about that. Kenny Mayne is hanging out with us. Creator, documentarian now. He's everything. I love it. He's hanging out with us on SportsWrap. He's going to hang out with us throughout the show. I want to come back, ask him about what is next. Because when you say it that way, it makes me think you've got more you want to do. So Kenny Mayne's going to hang out for a couple more segments with us on this Wednesday. Good to have you with us. Hanging out on this special edition of SportsWrap, Kenny Mayne. Former ESPN SportsCenter anchor. Now he's documentarian. He's filmmaker. Any damn thing he wants to be at this point in life. Well,
we still got to bring in some money. We have a high overhead still. I can't I'm still trying to work. It's funny when people, so how's retirement? I was like, I'm not retired.
Yeah, I know.
I'm not retired.
No.
It's like I quoted Geno Smith I was on SportsCenter a couple weeks ago. That was nice of them to let me come on and promote my movie and just have some fun with the guys. And I said it out of the gate. It just kind of came to me in the moment. I quoted Geno Smith in a different way. I said, I'm not retired. I ain't right back. His whole line about, being written off.
Yeah.
So no, I think I'd be really bored. I don't like golf that much. I like golf a lot, but I can't play every day. And I love Gretchen, my wife. The kids are all at college or beyond. So we're hanging out doing our thing. And I want to continue to do something, whatever that thing is. And I have a whole bunch of different ideas. I have a little podcast thing in development with somebody that allegedly is going to get papered up soon. And I want to start sooner than later on my next little fakey documentary. It was like 30 minutes long, this wiffle ball thing.
How long did it take you? How long did it take you?
Well, shooting 5 or 6 days.
I'm saying start to finish. From conception to it being
6 months.
Finished. 6 months. Okay.
Roughly 6 months. And it could have been done sooner, but there were other things that got in the way. And I'd pick things up with my editor, John Gow, out in Seattle. he'd say, hey, I just tried this in this scene. What do you think of this? And I'd talk to my brother-in-law, Robert Watson, who was doing the music score for it, and he'd have a new idea. And so, it wasn't like we sat in a building together for a month straight and knocked it out. It was more like, let's do 2 days here, let's take a week off, let's do another day here. But then came the time, well, what are we doing with it? It's done. I'm happy with it. We got cool music in it. We got Ken Burns, for God's sakes. And that was my favorite part to say. I visited fellow documentarian Ken Burns. He's a great guy. He filled his role perfectly. And so now what do you do? So I entered a whole bunch of film festivals all over the place.
Oh, you did? Wow, I didn't know you entered it into film festivals and stuff like that.
I entered and was rejected. I got rejected, I think, I forgot to count. We could look it up, 27, 28. And it was always the same kind of, we're sorry letter. So many different, nominees this year, blah, blah, blah. But the Seattle Film Festival said yes. And in fact, they highlighted me really well. And we were the first one. There was a great doc on Sugar Ray Seals, the old boxer that followed me. I didn't know how to do it. I didn't know what the right way. I got advice from people who know more than I. And they were like, if you get into film festivals and it gets some notice and it gets written up by this guy or that guy, or, then all of a sudden Netflix is, hey, that film festival says he's, we thought that was going to be the method, right? That didn't work out the way I'd hoped. But it was a fun experience. It was fun trying. And then I contacted a few different places. Hey, here's my movie. Would you like to look at it and tell me if you want to distribute it? Fubo Sports said yes, and I'm very glad that they did so. And that's a great landing spot. That's a sports,
Sure.
audience, right? They already like sports, so why wouldn't they click on a movie about wiffleball?
So you don't know what you don't know. So now that you've gone through this process, would you want to do it again? And would you, now having gone through that experience, you could probably figure out ways to tighten it up, make it quicker, make it shorter, the process of going through and doing it. What do you think of when you think of those next projects you want to do?
Well, depending on what else happens in my life, money-making wise, I'd love to do it the same way again and just own the whole thing, have nobody telling me what I can and can't do. However, it would be nice if somebody said, wow, that wiffleball thing was really good. What do you want to do next?
Here's a check.
And here's X amount of money ahead of time. And I don't have to, and also I don't want to worry about the bureaucracy of it. That drove me insane because I don't do my own taxes. Some people do. I'm not a math guy. I can do simple math. I can count Yahtzee dice quickly. I can do horse race math, but don't give me complicated math, right?
Yeah.
And so I have a tax guy and I send him my stuff all year long and he tells me it's legal and here's your deal. And I think everybody should do what they know how to do. And I don't want to be the guy clearing music and the guy dealing with insurance to indemnify whoever shows it and all those terrible things that took forever. But they finally got accomplished, and we finally got out in November, and now it's available on Fubo Sports.
So what you teased in the last segment that, the next thing, give me a taste, give me something that you really want to do next for this sort of documentary or mockumentary or whatever you want to call it.
I don't want people to steal my ideas. So I'm not going to say specifically what it is, but it's sports related again. And it's a derivative of wiffleball. And it's with a popular baseball player that we would all know and love. So I want to basically, here's one I really want to do, and I'll give this one away. There's a guy at the airport. How much time we got in this segment? Raise your finger at 30.
We got 2 minutes.
No, shit. This is a 1 minute. We have a bunch of time. So I was at the airport checking in. This is like a year ago, and I had my golf clubs. I was going to Vegas when I was doing stuff for Caesars. And he starts telling me how he played golf in junior college. He says, but then I got kicked off. I was like, what do you mean we got kicked off? What happened? So he was in a junior college in the Northeast somewhere, and they were in the league tournament. And at the turn, they're walking by the restaurant. They look up, and there's Phil Simms. And this is in the Giants glory days with Phil Simms. And they all go running up, Phil, can we get a picture? And, they're all excited. Phil, sit down, have a lemonade or whatever. He's being all nice. They decided in that moment, the tournament, we're going to hang out with Phil Simms. And he quit on a tournament that he was in because it was cooler to hang out. I want to find more stupid, weird moments like that in sports history because there's a half hour there. There's a whole bunch of stuff that you could do, derivative off that, including the Phil Simms interview. But that's not the next one. the next one is something different.
I can tell you too from experience that you were talking about the bureaucracy and things like that, and you're like, I want to own it. I want to, I have total control over it. And I thought when I launched my own media company 3 years ago, sorry, I was like, now I'll have total control. And you know what it turns out, Kenny? We still all answer to somebody. Even when you own your own brand, you're still ultimately answering to somebody.
But I think like the only guy in Hollywood, well, there's probably more than one, but Christopher Guest, who I'm a huge fan of, and he's been really good to me. In fact, he endorsed the Wiffleball movie, so we should put that in lights on Variety magazine or something. He kind of does what he wants. I said, how do you get away with that? He said, it's just the deal I made way back when, and I was successful enough with what I did do that I don't have to go beg for permission. I just go do what I want to do, and they release it. So yeah, that'd be a fun and enviable place to be, but I'm happy doing what I'm doing right now and shooting for the moon on the next one.
Kenny Mayne is hanging out with us. We'll go through a couple of the sports stories making news, and I looked back at when Kenny started at ESPN. I'm going to blow his mind with something when we come back on SportsWrap.
That's a tease.
Kenny Mayne, the documentary filmmaker. See? He loves that.
Cool.
Wiffleball.
Auteur. Exactly.
Wiffleball available on Fubo. Go and check that out. We talked about the making and some of the stuff Kenny is doing with that. I'm going to blow your mind. Ready?
Do it.
You started. We saw the big contract this week for Juan Soto with the Mets. And as a Yankee fan, it was kind of wild to see. I'm not like a lot of people. I'm like, oh, I'm so mad. I'm burning jerseys. Nick Turturro losing his mind.
It's a free country.
What'd you say?
It's a free country. People, like, we just lost our football coach at UNLV, Barry Odom. Yeah. And this is after 2 really good seasons. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people wanted to hate. I was like, he made a decision for himself and his family, and he gave us a couple good years. I wish he had stayed. I wish they had kept building the program, but athletes get to make that decision when they go free agent or in college now. They go into the portal. Finally, they had that right. Anyway, I'm off topic there. But no, you were saying 1994.
So 1994, you're starting at ESPN on Sports Smash. ESPN 2, the Deuce, on Sports Smash.
Can I interrupt that to tell you, I remember distinctly somebody told me, don't come in here with aspirations that you're going to be doing Sports Center. You're on ESPN 2. You're doing the Sports Smash at 58 and 28, Well,
let me ask you something. Do you know in 1994, if you even get one of these right, I'd be amazed. Who was the highest paid Major League Baseball player in 1994? American League and National League. Can you get either of them? I got this. Because when I tell you this, it's going to blow your mind.
It's probably a horrible number. Like, I remember when Steve Largent got $1 million, and we were like, oh my God. And I remember when Magic Johnson got, what did he get? 20 million for 20 years or 25 for 20. Yeah. That seemed just absurd. Now you got like
94. See, my brains are mashed potatoes. I'd never be able to remember this stuff. I've got like massive head trauma.
Can you give me the first letter, last letter, initials?
If I give you the first letter, last letter, you're going to get it in a second. BB. No. See, that would be not Barry Bonds. They're still paying him. Hint.
Bobby Bonilla. Yeah.
$6.3 million in 1994, 30 years ago. $6.3 million. And in the American League, initials JC. The JC. Hit one of the most famous home runs in World Series history.
This is like the 2-minute drill, and I'd be failing, and I'd lose. I'd have JC.
Come on, he hit a famous World Series home run. That's easy.
A whole bunch of people did that. Bobby Thompson. Who?
But that's
Who do we got?
Joe Carter.
Oh, yeah, for Toronto.
Yeah, Joe Carter. Yeah.
Sorry, I missed that one. I apologize to all Joe Carter fans out there.
That's all right.
I know what you're saying.
And we're on in half of Canada, so thanks.
Yeah, I love Canada,
including Toronto.
My nieces, little girls, were singers of the anthem in Seattle when they're like 5 and 6 years old, and they then also learned to sing "O Canada" because sometimes they'd do a hockey game where you had both the American and the Canadian. And Paul Schaefer used to do this bit on Letterman where he's Canadian, and he would start singing the Canadian anthem, and they'd make fun of him and whatever. We got my niece on Letterman to sing the Canadian national anthem expertly. The owner of the Detroit Red Wings used to fly them from Seattle to Detroit for playoff games because he thought they were his good luck charm. That's off the subject, but I just want to give more love to Canada, including my good friend Jimmy Sandusky, who won Grey Cups in Canada. The Canadian listeners will know about him, my age. He was All-America at Walla Walla Community College, UNLV, then San Diego State, and was the inventor of the gloves, the predecessor of the gloves that all the players make these one-handed catches with today.
What do you think when you see a Juan Soto get $765 million? It just seems nuts.
Again, free market, if that's what the market allows him, good for him. There's just like all these huge NBA contracts, everybody's getting insane numbers. Yeah. But apparently they can afford it because there's enough TV revenue and ticket revenue and merchandise revenue, and there must be some way they're paying this. They're not going bankrupt, right? They're still in business.
Is there a point, though? But when you think about it, because of the TV contracts now and everything morphing into, and now streaming jumps in, like we're seeing with the NBA, is there a point where that money does start to run dry and it does hit a ceiling?
Well, if that happens, then everybody's going to have to accept $400 million and not $750. But the thing is, it's not everybody. It's a handful to get those insane ones in baseball. But it's funny how baseball works different than the other sports, NFL and NBA in particular, where here's the pot of money, the players get 51% or whatever the number is, and it's split, and everybody has a max player, right? Sometimes you're like, how'd that guy get that? Well, because every team gets one guy that gets the, you know what I mean? So baseball's the truest, pure capitalism of highest bidder gets to do what they want, which is unfortunate for some of those teams that can't afford anything close to that. Somebody threw a stat at me. That contract is like higher than Pittsburgh's entire payroll for the last 3 years. Like some insane.
Yeah. Oh, it's crazy. Yeah, it's crazy.
One could argue that it's not necessarily great for the sport when now you've made it exclusive to a handful of cities. That old joke about who's eliminated from the playoffs and it's May 4th, like the season barely started. But
I brought all this up.
Absurd.
Yeah.
It's absurd, but so are a lot of things. I just paid $7 for coffee. That's ridiculous too.
Max Fried just got a massive deal from the Yankees, which was the reason I brought this up as well, and I never even mentioned it. Bad job by the host. 45 seconds left in this segment. The controversy with the UNLV quarterback and the payment and what he wanted, what he didn't get. Sum it up in
I
a
don't
few
know
seconds.
the answer as to the truth of it because I'm not on the inside of it.
Sure.
Did he get promised and did they not fulfill it, or is he and his agents exaggerate? I don't know the truth.
Sure.
Who said what, or maybe it was a miscommunication of a vague promise. I have no idea. But I think stuff like that is just sort of indicative of the new landscape we're in. There's going to be disputes of that nature. I'm waiting for the guy to enter the transfer portal at halftime and join the other team.
It's going to be it's until somebody, a governing body, takes control of this and defines it better. We're gonna be running into all sorts of problems. Kenny Mayne, we're gonna do one more segment with him, hanging out with us on SportsWrap on this Wednesday. Good to have you with us on this special edition of SportsWrap with Kenny Mayne hanging out with us. Documentary filmmaker, former ESPN personality. I never know what to put on like the lower thirds for these things anymore. When I have somebody like you on, I'm like, what do you do? If I put like former ESPN personality, I'm like, is he not a personality anymore? Does he not have a personality?
It's been 3 years. Like, that's nice that people remember, or they say, oh, I used to watch you, or those were the days, or, I'm not going to say that's not a nice, flattering thing. But it is funny now, 3 years later, I've done a couple other things since. It could just say former garbage can assembler. It could, you can put whatever you want.
You know what it is though? It's the Tony Soprano syndrome. Tony Soprano, James Gandolfini will always be Tony Soprano. You know what I mean? Like that's unfortunately that's just the reality of how these things work sometimes. Carol O'Connor was always Archie Bunker. I mean,
there's nothing wrong with it. It was fun while it lasted. I have tons of great memories. Every show I do, it always comes up. It's fun to reminisce. Like, it's all good. Like, I'm joining in on a Stuart Scott documentary they're making about Stuart.
Oh, that's great.
And it'll be fun, sad as it is that he's gone and way too young, getting to laugh about our times together and, what that relationship was.
Let me ask you something, and you may or may not want to answer this. You may not want to weigh in. You were just there a couple weeks ago at ESPN. What do you make of the direction everything's taken? Because I've been outspoken. Look, I made a check from the Mouse briefly, working for ESPN Radio New York when they still owned that. I look at stuff like Pat McAfee, and I just don't get it. And maybe it's not for me because I'm 47 and like to think of myself as it just sometimes feels like it's TV for the lowest common denominator, and it's comedic, informative, or things like that. When you see the shift that things have taken and see a show like that, I don't know, maybe you like it. I don't know. It's just I watch Aaron Rodgers on there for 10 minutes talking about drones over New Jersey, and my head is just going like.
There could have been UFOs. You don't know. I don't know. I mean, here's the thing. They have how many channels, how many forms of communication to disseminate all this stuff. They have supremely talented people. You can't argue. Pat's really good. He knows how to run a show. He's funny, and he's a good add to the College Game Day. The fun kick for money is fun, like all of that. And Stephen A. Smith, that guy's a workhorse. He's on every day, all day. He deserves whatever he can get. I personally am more of a fan of the old school and even the new school Sports Center, where here's what happened today in sports. Here are the two anchors and a couple analysts who are going to tell you in that hour what happened, hopefully in an entertaining way. To me, that's still the benchmark of the place, whether they think it is anymore or not. What my point I was going to make is they have so many places to disseminate things. They got the radio, they got the internet, they got ESPN Plus, stuff I haven't even thought of yet. And so there's something for everyone. If you like Pat, watch Pat. If you like Stephen A, watch Stephen A. If you don't, and watch something else or turn the channel. But I wouldn't really knock it because I think they're still doing some of the foundational things that they always did.
Mount Rushmores are boring, lazy sports topics.
But we're going to do it.
But I'm going to do one. If we did one for ESPN, Berman, Patrick Olbermann, who's fourth?
Yeah, you're running out of room.
Who's the fourth? Who's the fourth?
I mean, a lot of people would probably say Stewart. I think a lot of people would probably say Stewart. He was kind of a breakthrough guy, brought a different, what's the best word for it? Just a different method to it than had been done before. That was poorly worded. I'm sorry. And it was. I remember I used to get banged for being too silly and making up my dumb lines and being kind of sarcastic about it all. And so I wasn't taking it seriously enough. And they wanted more New York Giants rushing stat averages, And Stewart was doing it his way with his little hip hop flavor, right? But he was smart enough to know if you front load it with a bunch of stats or on the back end, then you can get away with booyah in the middle. You know what I'm saying? He suffered the same thing I did about getting hauled in to Norby's office, like, God damn it, you be more serious out there. This is sports. And I always said the same thing. I've said 1,000 times. I took serious things seriously, as I still do, and I take less serious things less seriously, and I can do both. I was trained in journalism, and I can still, I was there. I don't mean to use this in this way, but I was there the night Kobe died, right? That was a very serious show, obviously. Yeah. There was nobody was like, Kenny, don't do joke. Like, nobody had to say that. They knew that we knew how to handle it. And if a coach got fired or somebody got, arrested or, whatever the serious thing was, although it is funny now what was once serious sometimes, a guy get caught with a half a joint in his car and we would reprimand him. How dare that? And now it's legal in every state practically. But yeah, I think that's the difference. If you can do both, you can do both. I mean, hell, Bob Lee, a lot of people thought he was straight as can be. Yeah. He's ridiculously funny. He has a great wit, and he would drop it in from time to time. But more often, he wanted to be known as Bob Lee. I'm Bob Lee, you know, and I'm serious journalism, and he did a great job at that.
I got 30 seconds left in this segment. If you had one Sports Center left to do, they say you could host it with whoever you want. Who would you host it with?
Bill Murray.
You won't pick a Sports Center like Linda Cohn or something? I love Linda, by the way.
Because I liked everybody I worked with, and I had a different relationship.
Nobody's going to be offended. Nobody's even going to see this. Nobody watches
Bill
me.
Murray and no one else. So I got to caddy for Bill Murray at the Hartford Open. He was walking by. He was going to do one of his things where he ties somebody's shoelace to the post and that whole thing.
Yeah.
I said, Bill, Kenny Mayne from ESPN, can I caddy the last 3 holes? He's like, for you? Sure.
Kenny Mayne's Wiffleball on Fubo. I'm glad we did this. Let's do it again soon.
Thanks for having me. It was great.
We're coming back. All right, we continue on this Wednesday edition of SportsWrap. It's fun hanging out with Kenny Mayne. That dude is a riot. Let's talk some basketball. It's Wednesday on the show. We don't abandon our responsibilities. No. Kurt Helin is still here. Pro Basketball Talk at NBCSports.com. See? I could have done a whole show with Kenny Mayne. And I said, no, Kurt Helin is on Wednesdays. He was like, Kurt who? Yeah. Like, Kurt Helin is on Wednesdays.
I promise to be funny.
Nothing funny about this NBA Cup, man. That was a couple of fun games last night.
Yeah.
Bucks and Magic. Boy, I tell you, that Magic team has no quit. I mean, they were down 2 important pieces last night, and that team just has no quit whatsoever. I know Milwaukee won, but Orlando did not make it easy.
No, funny. I know a couple of sharps who with NBC Sports, some of our betting people who were high on Orlando, who were like, no, they'll cover. It was because the spread was like 7 or something, and they're like, they're not going to win, but the Bucks aren't blowing people out. They are still just not that team yet. They are better than they were, and Giannis is playing like an MVP, but they're not there yet. They're not defending like that. They're not consistent like that. And like you said, that is a gritty, tough, physical, hard to play against Orlando team. And Jalen Suggs thought he was back at Gonzaga, just lighting it up on UCLA or something. Like he was just having a game in the second half. And they got great play off their bench. Guys, Mo Wagner stepped up for his brother and had a great first half. Like they're just finding ways. And I think that you're going to see that over the coming weeks. They're going to lose some games. They're going to struggle because they're just going to struggle to generate offense. But the defense will keep them in games and keep their head above water.
Defensively, that's been the big issue for the Bucks. It looked like in the second half, though, it feels like they're at least starting to figure out some semblance of defense.
Yeah.
Is it just, hey, play it at the most key times in the game? Is that the best they could hope for?
Yeah, I think it's not going to be the same, and that just comes partially back to personnel. Giannis is everywhere. Brook Lopez has probably lost half a step as he's gotten older, but you're asking him to be a big guy in the middle, and he knows how to drop back and do that. But you don't have Drew Holiday on the perimeter, arguably the best perimeter defender in the league, and how a key to what Boston's title last year and a key to the Bucks title. They're just not. And you replace that with Damian Lillard, who historically may not be the best defender in the league. Jason, you've lost some of that, and so there's places to attack where there didn't used to be. But I think you've got the point that they can be good enough for long enough against most teams to be, I think, better than they've been. They really struggled to start the season.
They a top 4 team? Are they a top 4 team when all is said and done in the East?
I think right now there's such a gap, but maybe 4th. There's such a gap, I think, between 1 and 2, and even I'd have the Knicks 3rd, your Knicks. But there's a drop off between where Cleveland and Boston are and everybody else in the East right now. So yeah, they can get up to third or fourth. I think they can be that good right now, especially with Orlando. I mean, Orlando was there, and they're definitely going to be taking a step back.
Thunder beat the Mavericks, so they're through to the semifinals in Las Vegas as well. And this is setting up, Kurt. It'd be sort of a dreamy potential Final Four for the Emirates NBA Cup. I don't even get paid to say Emirates, so I don't know why I am. Knicks, Hawks, Warriors, Rockets. If the Knicks win, they get the Bucks. Whoever wins that Warriors Rockets matchup gets Oklahoma City. Give me your thoughts on what this Final Four potentially looks like.
Yeah, the NBA league office is rooting hard for the Knicks in this one, and it's nothing against everybody like that. That gives you some star power, some big names, some Ben Stiller and some celebrities fly out to Vegas in the middle of December and get out of the cold and go to some games. Like, you can see how that works for the league, and you've got star power on the other side, with Giannis Antetokounmpo on the Bucks. So that sets up beautifully. They're really obviously going to, I think even more so, they want Steph Curry. Look, LeBron James drove this thing with the Lakers a year ago. Steph Curry has the potential to bring in those kind of ratings again because he's Steph Curry, because they're the Warriors. But Houston, man, Houston is coming together. That is another team that is young and athletic and the second best defense in the NBA right now. They are everywhere. They are physical. They are long and athletic. Steph Curry's going to see Dylan Brooks, and when Dylan Brooks isn't on him, he's probably going to see Amen Thompson, who is longer and more athletic. It's a tough matchup. Some other guys, Kuminga's got to have a big game for the Warriors for this to work. They're going to have other guys step up. Houston, their struggle is they don't shoot terribly well, but when their defense is forcing turnovers and they get out and run, they go on runs because they get 6-7 stops in a row, turn those into a little stretch of fast break points, and suddenly they go on a 10 or 12 point run, and it's just hard to catch up to them again because they shut you down.
There could be a couple of teams that make the playoffs in the West or play in or in that mode that weren't in there last year. I think Rockets. I think Spurs. I think Rockets. I think Spurs that could be in the mix as well. Teams that weren't there last year.
Grizzlies obviously are coming back, and they've looked they've really started to come together of late and find their groove again. But we kind of expected, we knew they were good. They were a 50-plus win team that just battled injuries. What's up now is Houston. I think that this looks like a team on the rise, and it's interesting because it leads to Jimmy Butler speculation. There's a ton of it out there. They're not, I will tell you now, they're not making a move this year.
You mentioned Jimmy Butler. I'm going to come back. I'm going to blow up my format, bring you back for the final segment of the show because I do have a couple things I want to ask you. Jimmy Butler is one of them. Sports Wrap continues on this Wednesday. All right, just about time to put the wraps on this baby for a Wednesday. Odds and ends coming up in a couple minutes. My man Kurt Helin hanging out with us from Pro Basketball Talk at NBCSports.com. He'll be out here in Vegas for the NBA Cup finals, or semifinals and finals, so I'm going to get to hook up with him when we're out here. You like sushi, by the way? Because we're going to do sushi. Are you into sushi?
I actually love sushi. Right. So, yeah, no, I'm all in.
All right.
Yeah.
All right, so sushi it is. I'm going to take Kurt out for a sushi dinner. All right, real quick. Jimmy Butler wants out. Will the Heat acquiesce?
Wants is a strong word. He likes Miami. He wants to get paid. He wants a new deal. He has a $52.4, I believe, a $52 million player option next year. He wants to let that go. And even if he takes a slight pay cut, what he wants is another 3 or 4 years of guaranteed money at close to that number. I don't know that that's out there for him with his injury history. Miami last year, remember Pat Riley said, I don't know, man. I want to see you play more. You missed the playoff series. You missed a bunch of games. He's been better this year. I don't know if that money's out there for him, but they are going to listen to trade offers for him.
Wow.
And there'll be some calls. Golden State will call, but this is going to get interesting. This is where that new CBA with the tax aprons and the many, many restrictions to stop Steve Ballmer from spending money. is really going to get in the way of stuff fans like, because it is going to be incredibly difficult. Miami can't take back more money. If they deal with the Warriors, they're hard capped just above where they're at right now. They can't take back more money. So it becomes incredibly difficult to put together these kinds of trades mid-season.
The Lakers and LeBron James. I saw Bill Plaschke of the LA Times say they should trade LeBron James. Did that even make a ripple in the basketball world? Or, I mean, does anybody take that stuff seriously?
Yeah, Bill Plaschke is the nicest guy in the world, like one of the best human beings you'll ever meet. And I disagree with every take he's ever had. Pretty much. Look, if LeBron went to the Lakers and said, trade me, they're a team-friendly organization. They would do that for him. And he said coming into the season how much the Olympics, like really playing for something high level again, meant something to him. How much he missed playing, not just at that level, but having that kind of Game 7 against Serbia kind of pressure, against France pressure.
Right.
He missed that, and he's not getting it with these Lakers, but I don't think he's asking out. He's had multiple chances the last couple of years. He was a free agent. He re-signed and asked for a no-trade clause. So don't bet on this happening at all. And if it does, it certainly, again, it becomes so hard to move him during the season. I just don't see how you pull that off.
Kawhi Leonard is practicing. They're not going to rush him back. What is the timetable you're hearing when it comes to Kawhi Leonard returning to action?
Very close. Like I was around the Clippers. I was around the Clippers recently, and the vibe was when I watched them Sunday night. Within a week, maybe 2 at the outside, but he's very close. They're taking things obviously very cautiously, but they're very close to getting him back, and they need him. That's a good team that becomes potentially dangerous. I don't know, like win a championship dangerous, but if he's healthy, I don't really want to see them in a postseason series.
All right. That is Kurt Helin, Pro Basketball Talk at NBCSports.com. We're going to make him hang out with us, though, because it's time for some odds and ends. Odds and ends. Kurt Helin gets to play along here for a couple of minutes. Caitlin Clark, your Time Magazine Athlete of the Year. Any shock there to you, Kurt?
I actually think that's a great call, because who's impacted professional sports or sports in general more in the last year than her? I can't think of anyone who's had a bigger impact.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with you. And I thought some of what she said, let me ask you as somebody who's a journalist and a reporter in this situation, does time in that, because when I look at the answers to the things and some of the quotes in there, is that a situation where they just send her a list of questions and she's typing it out on a keyboard? Because it kind of felt like that. I'm not trying to bang on her or anything like that and say it looks scripted or like a PR person did it, but it kind of did.
She's very polished, but I would not be shocked if that was something sent to her and she responded with the PR person standing like right there. Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of felt the same way too. Berlin to host the first NFL regular season game. It'll happen in 2025. That was long something that the NFL was hoping to get accomplished. The city of Berlin in Germany to host their first NFL regular season game. That will be in 2025. The Rangers have dealt for Jake Berger, so they make some additions there. They also went and got Nathan Eovaldi to help out that team as well. So Nate Eovaldi and Jake Berger now going to the Rangers. Hey, Kurt, is this an issue for NBA players as well? This, Joe Burrow's home was broken into during the Monday Night Football game. This is a problem for NBA teams, isn't it?
NBA actually sent out
players.
They've had multiple players this year, homes broken into while they were on the road at games. It's a thing. And it's across multiple sports. There's some smart criminals out there organizing this.
Can I also say this though? And I'm not victim blaming here. You're an NBA player, you're an NFL player, quarterback, star, whatever, making $1 zillion. Get better security. Hire somebody to watch the place for a night if you're making $40 million a year. You know what I mean? Am I crazy? I mean, really?
I make a little less than $40 million a year, just, a shade less than $40 million a year.
And you have an ADT home security system. Exactly.
I have a home security system, and when we're gone, our dog sitter stays here.
That's going to do it for us. Thank you, Kurt Helin, Kenny Mayne. Those of you watching, we always appreciate it. We'll see you back here on Thursday for more Sports Wrap.